I don't have big figures or big numbers or any of that, but I am a single mom and I have two beautiful children, and my whole livelihood, my whole future depends on the child care. I cannot afford to pay the child care, and this is my ticket. You know, I'm going to school. I go to the community college, and I'm hoping to transfer to Sonoma State. And if you cut my child care, I will not be able to do that. And there's got to be another way. And so I ask that you guys hear me, and please just cut the budget somewhere else, because there's too many of us. There's too much to lose. Children are our future. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Next witness.
Hi, my name is Ashley Fry. I'm also a part of Parent Voices. I currently go to school, and if you guys cut my child care, I'll be forced to go back on welfare, being that with the minimum wage job, I cannot pay for child care. So please reconsider. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next witness.
Good afternoon. My name is Claire Smith. I'm a volunteer with the Older Women's League of California, also known as OWL. We're a local grassroots organization, also represent chapters from around the state, and affiliated with National OWL, which is based in Washington, D.C. The conversation today reminds me of a theory that I learned back in the 80s when I was in graduate school, and that is the more so theory. It's a theory on aging. And it talks about how personality characteristics over the years change. So if an individual is joyful and adventuresome as a young person, as they get older, they become more so. If an individual is cantankerous and obstinate as a young person, they become more so as they get older. The conversation today, I think, is related to the more so theory, because what we're talking about in terms of interrupted job histories, historically, low incomes and pay inequity for women has been going on for years and years. And here in 2012, we see more so. I'm here on behalf of OWL of California to say very clearly, we are angry and we are appalled by these attacks against midlife women and older women in this state. We support the Commission, and we will continue to advocate on behalf of older women in California. We do not support balancing the budget on poor, old, sick women, especially women of color. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your testimony. Next witness.
Good afternoon. My name is Alicia Kingshaw, and I'm a policy analyst at 0 to 3. And I would like to thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of the 1.6 million infants and toddlers in the state of California, half of which are living in low-income families. CalWORKs and early care and education play an essential role in helping most of these vulnerable infants and toddlers start on a solid developmental path today so they can exit poverty tomorrow. Unfortunately, Governor Brown's proposed budget would decimate these services. Under the governor's proposed budget, restructuring CalWORKs would get rid of the last line of defense for many families living in poverty, 39% of which of CalWORKs recipients have children under the age of 3. At a time of high unemployment and limited job prospects, disenrolling families from CalWORKs who are not meeting work requirements would not only hurt parents but harm their young children from letting them access the high-quality child care services, and would place them at a greater risk of being homeless. Further, the governor's proposed budget would eliminate the young children welfare to work exemption for parents of children under the age of 2, which would force young mothers to either meet work requirements or lose services. However, we know that the current child care system does not have the capacity to serve all these infants and toddlers. At the same time, the governor's proposed budget would further cut child development programs by $517 million, which would result in the elimination of 62,000 child care slots. If this proposal were to go through, it would equal $1.7 billion of cuts since 2008,
30 seconds.
Which would result in 160,000 children losing services. In these tough fiscal times, California is forced to make hard decisions, and it comes down to a decision of values. Will we be a state that supports our most vulnerable babies and ensures they receive the necessary programs that will allow them to be safe, learn, and grow into healthy and productive citizens? Or will we be a state that we only talk about valuing infants and toddlers and families? I strongly urge you to take action and oppose the governor's proposed cuts to early care and education and to the restructuring of CalWORKs, and to tell Governor Brown to not balance the budget on the backs of our babies.
Thank you very much. Next witness, please.
My name is Lourdes Alarcon. I'm a San Francisco chapter Parent Voices, and I'm here to kind of advocate for my children for childcare, but also answering the question of Senator Wright that was asking what can we do. I think we should invest in education and childcare and the care of our children first. And if you didn't see it, I see it like a pyramid structure. If the families at the bottom who spend all their income, not have any money to spend or no ways to support their families, the whole structure is going to fall. So it's time to think about giving more funding of that. If you can find funding, there's a lot of answers for revenue. There's a lot of proposals for revenue. And I think it's something that we strongly have to think about, because women, our children, are at the bottom of this pyramid, and we're the ones that are going to most suffer. We already faced touched rock bottom last year. This year is going to be disastrous. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Next witness.
Hi, my name is Maria Lustori. I'm the organizer of Parent Voices in San Francisco, and I have been doing this job in the last 16 years. And I know that most of the women I've worked with are single moms, and it was mentioned earlier that 80% of the welfare load is load is children, and I think of that 20% remaining adults, I could safely say 19% are probably women. And many of the women I've worked with, the single moms, also need childcare to work. And we know that most of their childcare providers are also women. And the governor's proposing to decimate our childcare system. And most of the cuts he's proposing is going to impact, again, a women-led industry. And for instance, center-based contracts, if that's gone, that's going to impact a lot of women who are doing childcare, because women are nurturers. I mean, it just happens to be traditionally a women profession, although we would love to have men there. And contrary to the dad who came in earlier, we are not against men. In fact, Parent Voices has a dads group. The dads want to have their own group too, because why is it that we have all these women group? We have all these women group because women need the support. We don't have anybody else to help us. And so all the investment that the state has put in childcare need to be preserved. The governor's proposal is only putting a maintenance of effort on the state side. Most of the funding for childcare are all federal dollars. And I think we should remember that all the investment that California did for childcare, we cannot undo all of that.
30 seconds.
Okay. So I also want to just close by quoting one of our parents who said, "Me being a parent is not easy, let alone a single mom. Bringing up my children well impacts everyone, even those without children. Teaching our children how to get along in the world is our job. Everyone can help. Pull us up, do not pull us down." I highly encourage parents to speak out, especially mothers, because we need to stop this chain reaction. This train wreck of job loss, family economic stability, lack of safety for our children, and the damage to the mental and emotional health of families. These are choices that we can avoid. Please remember that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next witness.
Hi, Deneen Kovalevsky, representing the California Alternative Payment Program Association. I'm not going to be redundant on much of what you've heard, but I'd say let's take what was said earlier in the day, take back ownership of this budget. At what time did someone change the mission for our children? To work. The mission is to learn. And so at a bare minimum, welfare and attaining work participation rates ought not to be on the backs of our kids. Our families are going to become self-sufficient. They are going to be able to put food on the table. But while they're doing that, if we take all the cuts that the governor proposes, these kids will lose out from birth on. Our schools are going to be impacted with more kids with behavioral issues. They're going to come into the school not coming from a nurturing, enriched environment, but one that they were discarded. The message that this governor is sending right now is these kids are disposable. Well, I'm here to tell you folks they're not disposable. And if we want to make this real, we can't impact. We know that there are some changes, but connect. I don't care if it's work participation rates, connect everything to the Department of Education and allow us in a real way to serve 0 through 20 for these kids. And I say if you do that, keep an infrastructure in place so that when we get through this recession, we have an infrastructure to serve these kids. Well-educated and nurtured kids are a relief to parents and will help them in the long run. To Senator Wright, I'll be visiting you in your office. Had we been visionary in the past, today we would have $3.1 billion more dollars in our coffers that due to the actions taken by the legislature from 2008 to 2012, we've lost $3.1 billion. Think if we had $3.1 billion more in our coffers today. So we've got to, in all due respect, look at what the governor's wanting to do. Cut another 517. Well, the multiplier effect says that 517 will be 1.5 that we will add on to our debt. So I just want to say in closing, let's keep it educational based from birth on in a real way. The reality is we're not going to meet the work participation rate, so this governor's setting up for a perfect storm, and I'm going to end it there. Thanks.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Next witness, please.
My name is Elisa Harless, and I'm here representing the National Association of Social Workers, California chapter. I'm here to say that we find it crucial for the Commission to continue to be able to promote social justice and equality for all women and girls. Social justice and economic equality resonate with social work values, and we found it appalling, and we are opposed to the reduction of CalWORK service funds and oppose the elimination of the Commission. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next witness.
Hi, I'm Sandra Jardy, Executive Director with the California Association for the Education of Young Children. Our members represent all those who are involved in early care and education for children aged 0 to 8. It seems that every year we're here to talk about another governor wielding another budget axe and taking it strictly to families, women, and children, particularly those involved in early learning and early care education settings. Unfortunately, the first things he attacks with his axe are the rungs on the ladder that lift these women and their families out of poverty and into prosperity. Every Christmas, it seems one of my biggest wishes for Santa is to not spend January standing here and having to continue to fight, because it would mean we actually had leadership in Sacramento that gave a damn about early care and education for children. Unfortunately, Santa didn't come through this year. I would love to be able to no longer hear stories like we heard today of children who, because parents are trying to vitally continue working, have to place their children in environments that are not of caring and that are not of quality. I don't want to hear of another child who's being hit because they're in the middle of a domestic dispute or have burns on their body from an iron because they're in a situation that nobody would want to be in, let alone a small child. We continually cut programs that keep parents out of work. We cut the child development feeder system for those who even care for our children through the cuts to the community college and CSU system. Our largest feeder of child development and early education teachers are those two vital programs. At what point do we say enough is enough? Last year, this committee held firm, and they were brave, and they said no to these cuts. We urge you to do the same again. We will respect you so much for it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next witness.
Hi, it's Patricia Bellasama, President of the California National Organization for Women. And definitely not to repeat what has been said all afternoon, 47 years the Commission has been here. All this time, evidence-based decision-making has been absent in the state budget analysis. We're finally actually having conversations about doing performance-based budgeting, and that's the year they decide to have gender equity line items. Isn't that a coincidence? We need to not only be able to do long-term cost estimates for revenues and tax policies and for cuts. We need to know whether every single part of every single program is working and functioning and doing what's best for every single citizen in this state. That has never happened. And we have an opportunity to start to do that. But unfortunately, we have two major reforms that the governor has started, and women are outside the door again, and the door is locked. And so while we're trying to figure out how to get through this year, let's make sure that we pay attention to reforms that are going to decide these issues for the next 50. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Next witness.
Thank you. Trying to balance out the gender at the end of the afternoon here. Kevin McCarty with Preschool California, and not much more to add after the great testimony and the sobering data from the panel earlier today. Certainly our concern are the cuts to child care, preschool, and the kindergarten cuts, and we'll get deep into this in the subcommittee process in the coming months. But all across California, people are stepping up and saying enough is enough. $1 billion in cuts to child care the last 3 years. And I think one thing today from the San Jose Mercury News, an editorial from the editorial board, don't cut funding for kindergarten, preschool. And in there they talk about certainly the cuts in the last 4 years. But the big thing they talk about, too, is the double whammy facing these families when they get kicked out of kindergarten. And with the cuts back to preschool and child care, these low-income families won't really have a place to go. And they're calling on the legislature and Californians to stand up and as I quote, we should fight this proposal until it dies. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next witness.
Tim Fitzharris with the Child Development Policy Institute. You've had all the witnesses say all I could say. I want to associate CDPI with the remarks of the superintendent and the commissioner and all the witnesses. But I really think that I ought to do the last minute here is say that CDPI strongly supports the Commission on the Status of Women. And so the first witness, I wanted to be the last male to say I counter the first male. So we are here in support of the Commission. Hopefully do not eliminate it.
Thank you, Mr. Fitzharris. We appreciate that. Next witness.
He's tall. Mike Carroll with the Western Center on Law and Poverty. And I very much want to associate my comments with those of the Women's Foundation, the California Budget Project, the Women's Caucus, and especially the Commission on the Status of Women, a group that I very much admire and depend on to do advocacy in this building around women's issues on a daily basis. There are so many issues that we have to watch out for. Our organization certainly can't take care of all of them. We need groups like the Commission that will speak up on a whole variety of issues that affect women and children, and we very much want to see them continue. And then lastly, I just want to conclude with this point, which is as we look at the governor's CalWorks proposals and the child care cuts that are being offered up in this budget, it just seems incredibly ironic that anyone would propose such deep and damaging cuts at a time when we have 11% or more unemployment in our state, where women cannot find jobs, where we've asked people to stay home, and now we're going to cut their chance to go to work to a mere 6 months. These policies just don't match up with our times, and we must reject them. And I really appreciate this hearing beginning to highlight the needs of this community and what we have to do going forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We'd like to thank all of the members of the public who participated in today's hearing. Again, wish to express our appreciation to all of the partners in the release of today's report, Commission on the Status of Women, the Legislative Women's Caucus, and most importantly, the California Women's Foundation and the California Budget Project for really stepping up to the plate and doing the hard work in terms of both financing the research and developing the analysis. Any closing comments from my colleagues?
Hopefully we're just moving forward in this area together. I would like to thank the Commission, the Women's Foundation, and the Budget Project as well. It was extremely enlightening.
Thank you, Senator Hancock. Ms. Carter.
Thank you so much, Ms. Mitchell, and Senator Hancock for hosting this today. It's always good to hear from the people themselves. I know we read a lot of reports and we understand what's going on, but when you look into the eyes of the person that it's happening to, it makes it all that much more real. And so thank you so much for convening this forum today. And I hope that we can come together and act accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This meeting stands adjourned.